I know that violence is change that occurs too quickly. No conflict is ever solved because of it, only suppressed. But violence makes even less sense when it weakens a community's ability to respond to powerful interests that are reshaping its relationship to place. That's from Multiply Divide on the American Real and Surreal by Wendy S. Walters. I read this with my book club 2 months ago, and I thought I'd talk about it, as well as The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, because I think they bring up the central conflict of systemic racism and like how it impacts communities and the difficulty of living in this world where you are not valued unless you are a white man or like anyone that's not, in power has no power. And it's just like bearing on everyone more and more, especially with Jordan Edwards, I believe that was his name, the 15-year-old boy that was like, killed, not even 2 weeks ago now. I feel like time is flying by, and it's like, what is going on with more and more black boys getting killed at the hands of police? And it just reminded me of, Angie Thomas's great, depiction of that in this YA novel, and how important this novel is to like explain that to a younger audience, because that's who it's happening to. It's like the character in this is 16 years old, and she witnesses her childhood best friend getting shot, and then like the repercussions of that, the protests, how those protests hurt and harm the community that they're in, and then they're vilified by the media and made to be worse than they are when it's just people being angry because the murder of this person is not justified. It's never justified. And if we have all right to be like the people that in the community have the right to be angry, and like the world that is watching that is just like always in shock and angry, and it's like we have the right to be angry too and to rise up and protest and demand change, because if we don't, then it's just gonna continue repeating itself as it has time and time again. And it's just so like heartbreaking how it continues to happen, and it just makes me like really emotional every time, and it just sucks that you just know it's gonna happen. And like it's the bullshit, like white supremacy and like racism that just runs rampant, and unchecked, and like no one it's like no one cares about like the people that are supposed to be protecting you killing the like community that they're protecting. Like it's just ridiculous, and it's all about just maintaining the same power dynamics that have been in place forever. And it's just like, fuck that noise. And it's so angering. And something I'm just jumping back and forth between these two books that I really enjoyed about Multiply and Divide is how Wendy uses different stories to depict the difference, like how a community can be impacted by what happens to it. Like she refers to Manhattanville, which is like where I kind of live now. Like this is like upper west side, not really, it's like Harlem. Morningside Heights is how it's being gentrified, which is some bullshit. But like the 125th to 145th area has gone through so much change, especially in the last decade or two, even more, before my time. And it's just interesting to see her depiction of it since she grew up in it. And getting to meet her because she came to the book club in February was really cool, because we got to like hear her talk about how how much of a struggle it was to write this, and to write about being a biracial woman, and like the intersection of like having to take care of your child while knowing that the world that they'll grow up in is not the world that you would want them to grow up in. She doesn't necessarily touch on that specifically in her book, but she talked about it when she was with us in the book club. And I just thought it was really powerful to hear that, and to have everyone share their stories and how each story impacted them, and it just shows the powers, the power of the written word, and like how this book, you know, and any book can connect people and have people talking about it, and that's what's so great about booktube. And like, even though I'm always in and out of the I'm always like in tune with the conversation, even if I'm not posting on here on YouTube as often. I'm always on Instagram and Twitter, just being abreast. I hate that word. Keeping aware, being aware of what's happening. And yeah, I just wanted to say those 2 cents because let's get back into this. You know, talking about books thing. I've only have read a couple books because, like I mentioned in my last video, I haven't been feeling that great. I'm feeling better now, so I will hopefully get back into reading slowly. I am reading More Happy Than Not now, and ooh, it's getting in my feelings. So I'll definitely have a review about that and sexuality and the confusing thing that it is to try to figure out your sexuality as you're growing up, and something I've definitely identify with Aaron, the main character in this book. But yeah, all of the thoughts on all of the things. Let me know how you're doing, what you're reading, what you've been up to, and I'll be back very soon, hopefully. Bye.